What about the Royal Commission into off-course betting? That was another important case for you.
Yeah, that was quite a big step for New South Wales. It was about 1961 to 63. It was heard by Mr Justice Kinsella, who had been a industrial court judge and then became a Supreme Court judge, and he was assigned to hear this, to conduct this commission. A very interesting one because it did divide the Australian Jockey Club up too. The chairman of the Jockey Club wanted to have off-course off-course bookmakers, whereas there were other members of the committee, they wanted totalisator betting. So that was the inquiry. In those days, the TAB, I think, was existing in Western Australia, but that was off-course bookmaking, not totalisator. Victorians had just adopted the TAB, and I think New South Wales was then looking into it. So I found it a fascinating exercise. And
which side did you represent?
Well, I was counsel assisting the commissioner. I was briefed, and then later on, I briefed senior counsel to lead me. Senior counsel was a inexperienced racecourse gentleman, and he took a while to be re-educated in the language of the racecourse. By that I mean, the pony. You say, "I want a pony," but you don't want a horse. You want a bet for a certain amount of money.
Yes, that's right. Yes. So, what can you give us a little bit of a sort of a picture of how the Royal Commission actually transpired? What actually happened? What were the main findings and summings up?
Ultimately, the Commissioner decided that there wouldn't be TAB system of betting, and he laid down specific rules about when and where betting shops could be set up. In other words, he wanted them away from schools, away from churches, but in an area where still be service the community, but he didn't want any comforts in the community in the betting in the shop, so people could sit down all day and bet. The theory was you came in, put your bet on and walked out again. And I don't know where you went, but anyhow, you went out and came back if you won. But surprisingly, this was 1962, 3, and minimum bet was 2 and 6pence. It was just before decimal currency. Now I think the minimum bet's about $5 or something like that.
What was the event that led to the Royal Commission? Was it which Attorney General?
The Attorney General was Reg Downing, I think.
Yes.
Reg Downing, yes. And there was this pressure from bookmakers too. There were about 3 lots who wanted the piece of the cake. One was the AJC, one was the SP bookmakers, and the other was the bookmakers who wanted to have, of course, betting shops like they apparently do in England now, I think. Mm-hmm. I was amazed in course of evidence we found that down near Wollongong there was a SP betting establishment there. It was in the old embankment or embankment, but wartime gun emplacement, I think, but had underground access, just a very heavy concrete pillar on top, and there's only one way in. And at a time when phones were hard to get, they had an excess of 30 phones, I think, and had a very big business in it. And it was almost impossible to get in. And Eric Miller appeared for the SP bookmakers too, and he and the commissioner were often at loggerheads.
Can you recall any colourful exchanges there?
Yeah, it was indeed. But it was very, very interesting commission to be part of, but it also had a very, I suppose, social effect too. It was, in a sense, control betting, but also to make certain the revenue came to the government rather than to the SP bookmakers. And
Did you encounter much of notorious characters like Bill Waterhouse?
Yes, I'm not sure I've forgotten now whether Bill gave evidence or not in that, but there were some notorious characters coming along to make their claim or stake for part of the the pie.
Yes. So now we're talking about the 1950s, early 60s, and you mentioned before Reg Downing, who was then an Attorney General of New South Wales. There were also a couple of others that you would have dealt with, Billy Sheehan and Ken McCaw.
Yes, the first Attorney General, I think, was back in when Labor got into power in 1941. Clary Martin was the Attorney General, and then I think he, shortly after, I don't know exactly what year, but he joined the army and was up in New Guinea, it said, and been up for a few years. And during that time, Reg Downing was acting Attorney General and Minister for Justice. Reg was a very interesting gentleman, and he'd come through the trade union movement. I don't know which union it was now, but he studied law also while he was a member of the upper house, and he graduated in law. But he had the respect of all members of the profession, the Conservatives as well as the Labor. He was very well received by Sir Frederick Jordan, who regarded him highly, and he was a quietly spoken but active politician who did a lot for I think, for the profession. He was instrumental, along with Garfield Barwick and Ken Manning and a few others, in really establishing the legal profession in Phillip Street by obtaining a grant of a portion of land there for a long-term lease for use by barristers.
And we're talking ultimately about Wentworth and Selborne Chambers.
That's right.
We?
Yes. Mm.
Yes, yeah, recognised the need for them to be housed properly instead of in little sort of chambers dotted all over the place.
So I think he was really an outstanding friend of the legal profession.
What about Billy Sheehan?
He was a very interesting gentleman too. Billy was World War I gentleman, and he was a very good criminal lawyer, and he ran a good portfolio. He had been Minister for Health, and at one stage. Anyway, he was also, I think, Minister for Transport. And after one election, he was moved to Attorney General, and Clary Martin was moved to Transport. That became a very, very sore point with Clary Martin.
He felt he'd been demoted.
Yes, I thought he had been, and but he was a good. Very good minister too, very attentive to his portfolio. And,
What about Ken McCaw?
he was an unusual Attorney General for the Conservatives. He was almost totally blind.
Oh.
And he conducted all his professional work either through his secretary or in Braille, or of course, was talking. And he was the one who actually appointed me to the bench in 1969, and he later on appeared before me in a criminal trial for one of the accused. I often wondered before the trial how he could conduct a trial, and remarkably, had a remarkable memory. He could remember all the details, cross-examine, even though he couldn't see what was going on around him.
How did that affect, say, the jury's reaction to him or witnesses he was cross-examining?
Well, it's very hard to picture that, but I would have thought it would evoke sympathy. But this was a particular case where his client was one of a number of people alleged to have cast from an upstairs apartment a young person who was I think the son or adopted son of Kylie Tennant.
Oh, is that right? Oh,
so it had a bit of history about it, and so it probably had a bit of sympathy both ways. And